Am I going to sue somebody over it? No, I'm not. I promised them I wouldn't. They want to put me in jail. Like, this is how ridiculous these people in Hollywood are. They're so petty. They're so elitist. They are such bullies. And a lot of people have these stories. It's not just me. I learned that.
All right, we are back with Chris Todd. Last time I had you on, Chris, we were talking about O.J. Simpson. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Eric. Thanks for having me back on. Really appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate it too. Now, today we're going to go into another subject, and I've come to discover, through talking to you off the record, things like that, you're a producer, a writer, director. You've got 2 Emmys, a couple cons, been Fox, NBC. You're the rights holder of Aaron Hernandez, Natalie Wood, Emmett Till, and Chuck Workman. You work for all the studios, it seems, practically. Why are you going by Chris Todd, though? That's under another name. So why are you here as Chris Todd?
Well, like in Hollywood, everyone uses a stage name or a pen name. Sometimes it's to protect family members. I have a unique last name. And over the years, I've had a lot of contentious situations with Hollywood executives, actors, producers. I've had lawsuits about movies and shows and a lot of crazy stuff. And that's part of my story. So it's part of my journey and why I changed my name to Chris Todd. Chris is my middle name. So this actually is my name. I just jumbled it a little bit. And when I got into the investigative producing or journalism, being an author on these true crime cases in that genre, after about 20 years, 18 years in Hollywood on scripted, non-scripted kind of fantasy stuff, I never was in the investigative space till about 8 years ago. So I had to kind of change my name out of protection of my family. And I also wanted to rebrand myself. I'll be honest. I kind of wore out my first go-ahead at trying to be an executive producer, owner of content, rights holder, because I was really kind of a below the line guy, which I'm sure you understand a little bit in Hollywood. We call it above the line and below the line. And when I was trying to transition from below the line to above the line, that's where all the problems began.
Okay. I didn't know if it might be a case too, like Stephen King wrote as Richard Bachman for a while. J.K. Rowling had a pen name to write different types of material. So is that a factor too that, okay, new identity, new path, criminal investigation,
And it's a branding thing too. You have a brand. So Chris Todd, when you Google Chris Todd and some of my true crime projects, you're going to see interviews come up, videos, press, links. It's a brand, so and I sometimes use my real name and, people try to call me out on it online and they'll do crazy comments. I have a lot of people that are haters and I have lovers and haters. So I get a lot of phone calls and emails and people do these things. They've written full Reddits about me. There's full subreddits about my story on some of my books and my journey on some of these murder cases. So, and it's all part of the process. So it's not a big deal, but, I don't hide anything. Like when people say, no, that's not his real name. Yeah, no crap. We know. Like I say it. I've said it in interviews and it's in the media of what my real name is. So these people that think they're revealing something, you're not.
Well, fair enough. Now, let's go and rewind in time. What actually brought you into Hollywood? You said 20 years, so let's go back 20 some odd years.
25 years. Yeah, it's 25 years now. Yeah, and I'm not going to give you the long, crazy, drawn-out version. Oh, the first day I was on set was 1999. I started with a passion for writing, and I wanted to be a cinematographer at first. And I loved movies like everybody else. I loved TV shows. I loved the adrenaline you got from telling a real story, from seeing a stunt or seeing a love scene. I found passion. I'm a very passionate person. I'm very emotional. The projects I do now are based on emotion, spirituality. And so I started at the bottom. I really did. I actually snuck onto my first real movie set. I was called in to come in. It was a movie called The Hunted, with William Friedkin was the director, Benicio del Toro, Tommy Lee Jones. Very cool project. It was actually one of the highest. Had the highest budget at the time. It was $80 million. It was one of the highest budgeted films of its time. And I had done some work before that for a couple of years in casting, and I was a production assistant on small things in New York City is where I actually started. And I came on The Hunted and I just wanted to learn, man. I was like a sponge. I used to follow William Friedkin around with a broom. I'd pretend I'm sweeping up the set behind him. I'd eavesdrop in on the walkthroughs or the blocking rehearsals. And I was on that for a while in 2 separate locations and 2 separate times. And then I transitioned from that into other movies and I became an assistant director. I basically went from a production assistant to a second AD, we call it. Then I was a second AD. Then I was a first AD. Then I was a producer, a writer, a director. I literally just went up every rung all the way to owning content, financing content, winning awards, Emmy, Cannes Showcase. So my story, people like when I tell the story is I really came from nothing. I had no connections. I had no family members. I was from Connecticut. I was not in the business at all. And where I am today as this controversial producer, investigator, I never thought I'd be at this point. I really didn't. So to me, I felt that my journey really was one of kind of spirituality and fate. And I kind of didn't control how I got here today.
So, I don't know if it matters. Did you go to film school or just went in straight from behind the scenes?
I went to film school for 3 months in Portland, Oregon at the Northwest Film Academy. But I had started working before that. I just jumped in. I met a woman. She was an award-winning casting director in New York City. I met her on an island. And I said to her, I want to work in film and TV. I overheard you talking about it. And she was pretty tough. And she was like, I don't think it's for you. You're not going to cut it. You know, it's a really cutthroat industry. I go, no, I want to do it. I'll come work for you for free and I'll move to New York City. And I did. And that's how I actually started.
Interesting. So, can we talk about the different roles? Because a lot of people I think are interested in, for example, second AD to second AD
Sure.
to first AD.
Yeah. The PA thing, production assistant, is a very interesting state of mind because you are a nothing. You're the lowest of the low. As a production assistant, you're also supposed to help any department. You can cross any department. That's what's also kind of strange because everyone has these specific, he's the key grip, he's the best boy, he's the electrician, he's the lamp operator. Everyone on a movie set or TV show or commercial has a very specific role and they're in a hierarchy, almost like the military. Above the line is your producer, actors, director, EPs, money guys. Below the line, first AD and down through all the crew members, right? Okay. Production assistant. But the other flip side of being a PA is you learn a lot. You see everything. You're right there with the director. Sometimes you get called into the blocking rehearsal or the walkthrough because you need to know what we're going to lock up. Hey, this street needs to shut down. I'm going to race a Porsche up this road 120 miles an hour. Even your PAs, if they blow the lockup, we call it, someone dies. Do you understand? And that's where you're like, well, I'm just a PA and I'm only 24 years old. No, you right now, you're going to save the stuntman's life. Do you understand? So that type of work was fascinating to me. And then you take that experience, your next step up would be, they call it a key set PA, which is the head PA. That person is like an assistant director. After that would be second. That's just a term they use. They used to call them third ADs, third assistant directors. They don't do that anymore. They call them seconds. Then after that would be a second AD. After that's the first AD. That's the lead person who runs the shoot. That is the director's first assistant. That position is very unique and very difficult. And the first AD basically is the director for the director. He is not in charge, he or she is not in charge of the creative and everything else they are. So They don't say, "Oh, say that line a little with a little more passion." That's not what a first AD does. The first AD channels from the director saying, "Go tell them I need a little more passion, up everything," and then you relay that. Some directors are very hands-on, and others tell the first AD everything, whisper in your ear, "Tell her to stop crying so much; it's too much." Like, yeah, no, I had to tell Mandy Moore from This Is Us once to stop crying in this promotion we were doing. So sometimes as a first AD, second AD, you can be given the bad, like, tell them to stop doing it. Like,
The hatchet man.
you get, why do I have to stop crying? Like, well, that's what they're saying. It's just, look, your makeup, like, it's going to go all day. Like, we'll have to touch you up. So yeah, I have a lot of crazy stories about with very famous actors and producers, but we can get into some of that after.
No, I mean, this is awesome. Okay. So my main exposure, I've been on a couple sets way back when I was a teenager or whatever. So I kind of generally have seen things, but I'm not expert. I cover a lot of the Alec Baldwin Rust shooting. And I think that's a interesting story in terms of the roles of the film, because the one person who's actually been convicted of the crime is Dave Halls, who was the first assistant director. And I came to learn on that in the SAG guidelines, et cetera, that the first assistant director is the quote safety officer on the set. Is that something you could go into?
Their name is on the permit. My name was always on the permit with the police, LAPD. When we would do a shoot, the first AD's name is on the permit.
Okay, so
they are.
Your role is pretty.
Right.
Okay, so the role, it's an interesting role. And I love learning these nuances, like that you're talking to the actor sometimes or the director. Is that also the case of departments? Like, hey, we need this over there. We need this over there. Bring the lights up now, or go move these things around. I was in the military, and I envision the first AD as being like the first sergeant in a company. You have the commander who says, I want this to happen. Then the first sergeant makes it happen. Is that a fair analogy?
Yeah, I don't know whether like what a captain versus a lieutenant is. I used to say the first AD would be like the colonel. You have the general, right? And the general's in charge, right? Pretty much. Mm-hmm. Okay. No, the first AD is like he's the colonel. He's making decisions on his own. He's not always asking the general or the director.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so where did everything go wrong?
I think when I was trying to transition out of kind of below the line to being like an executive producer, financier, major union projects, like when I was trying to go into all the unions to like, I had the invites, I had all the credentials, they call them your books, and you submit your book and all this stuff. And I had everything accumulated over the years. And I wanted to own content. I wanted to make the Aaron Hernandez movie, Natalie Wood's movie, Emmett Till. It wasn't about being the boss. I had done the first AD, second AD, the non-union directing, producing, writing stuff on a smaller scale. And I wanted to go big. I wanted to be not Spielberg, but I wanted to be, Jerry Bruckheimer. That was my dream. Like, my dream was to drive the nice car and have the big house and have the pretty wife. And that's what I moved to LA for. You know what I mean? That's what I sacrificed so much of doing 15-hour days for minimum wage, working sometimes for free, getting stiffed on jobs, like traveling all over the country. Like, that's why I did that. I paid my dues. Then when I tried to transition really fully into this higher level, I was met with constant resistance. And I was a white guy, okay? A God-fearing white man. And I was struggling in Hollywood, which was super white at the time I was doing this, okay? Not today. And I will go into what that is. But I'm saying, and I was like, why is this so hard? Why is this so hard? I don't have a lot of money. I get it. I don't have crazy backers. And even when I had money and I had investors and financiers, I still was being stonewalled. They stole basically my Emmett Till story. They stole my Aaron Hernandez. I got in a lawsuit over it and had a restraining order filed against me because I snapped. And I had some other things happen in my life too. It wasn't great in my family life. I ended up getting divorced. I had just a tsunami of stuff happening all simultaneously. And I worked so hard for 15 to 18 years. And then I'm like, and they're going to do this to me. They're not going to let me get anything off. I had the rights to Aaron Hernandez, rights to Natalie Wood, rights to Emmett Till, Chuck the Bug Workman, had all the mafia guys, had the mafia movies, had the books, had the money, had financiers back. And they would just bring a studio and I'll give you 3-4 million. We'll shoot it. And I saw this dark side of Hollywood, the business side, and I just snapped. And when people read about me, they're going to see articles in Paris Hilton, TMZ, Deadline, Boston Globe. They're going to see a lot of these things. I have more stuff that never actually went public because I was in lawsuits that required me to shut up. Okay. And I had to get off these lawsuits by agreeing to not talking about them with some very famous producers and directors that I'm not going to name because I'll get in trouble if I even say their name. So what I'm saying is, and I just, I was like, I saw the cutthroat side and I saw the discrimination. I brought Black projects to the table, Asian project, BIPOC, if you'll call them. And this was years ago. This is before George Floyd. This is before Oscars so white, before they woke up and everything is, there's no white content anymore. And all the commercials are, mixing racial couples. There's no all white couple. Everybody's a mixed race. If you really look closely, you'll see what I'm talking about. And I just saw this side that I was like, you know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to do content and I'm going to move into projects that expose these people. And that's what led me into the crime solving. And it started with Natalie Wood about 8 years ago. And after that, that's when I was brought the O.J. Accomplice story. That Emmett Till came in the same, all of this stuff started. God was kind of showing me something. He's like, I need you to do this. I need you to come over here. They're not going to let you get off. You had Aaron Hernandez before anyone did. Now Ryan Murphy's doing it for $30 million. Okay. Emmett Till, he did an ABC. He did another version. And granted, some of these people had their own rights back in this. I get it. But I had no family in the state. Okay. I always I had Aaron Hernandez himself and his brother, his mom. I grabbed the domino piece that is the main right package. Okay. And I understand it's public domain and I learned all this with the legal jargon and it's public domain. It's an event. Anyone can do it. We don't need rights. We don't need your rights. And dude, I lost millions of dollars. Okay. Millions. And I basically said, no, I'm going to expose them. And that's what I did on Natalie Wood. I exposed the whole case on that, re-triggered that whole thing was because of myself and another producer. We did that. We brought that back. The reason you're all talking about Natalie Wood is I pitched the hell out of that project and brought all these people together. And anyway, and sometimes I burned the bridges too, because after a while I would get so angry and so upset. I'm like, what are you guys doing, man? So my whole shtick now was Chris Todd. I solve murders. I write a script or a book about it. I take it back to market. I say, this is the real story. These are the people who covered it up. This is the mistakes the police made. And I'm doing that now on Tupac and Biggie that just fell in my lap last week. So I'm saying is this was what God wanted me to do. And that's why I said in the beginning, I didn't realize what this was going to be. I kind of just followed the path. My anger took me. My fear took me, my emotions, and that's where we are today. So I did expose some of the discrimination in Hollywood at a major studio, and a major studio president tried to blackball me, and I'm not going to say his name right now. We can do this another time. So
what happened? Don't say names, but just tell me what went down. Like, can we go back and say Aaron Hernandez? How did you come about getting the rights?
Yeah, well, the Aaron Hernandez thing, I got in a lawsuit with a famous producer. It's online. He filed a restraining order against me because I scared him. I basically paid a prank where I pretended I was involved with the gangs. And look, I have all the disclosure. I have this thick. Okay. I understand I scared people. It was an act. I was an actor too. And I should have gotten an award for my voicemail. Okay. For them to believe what I was saying. So it was like half a prank, half real. And that's what I did. I used to blur the lines of like, you didn't know if I was joking or if I was serious when I said, if you make the Aaron Hernandez movie, I'm going to ruin you. And I'm using the word ruin different than other words I probably use. Okay. So, but I'm going to say it with this major studio president on a Black project that I had was partnered with, famous Black story. I won't say the name because I'll get in trouble and they'll cry about it. So I won't say it, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. And I had this project for 7 years and I pitched it and everyone knew I had it. I have the estate, the family, the kin, the screenplay written by this key person in the family, all of it. Built it, took it to market. No, Black people don't go to the movie theaters. It's just so Black. And I would get all this Black and I'm like, oh, is it because I'm a white guy? They're like, no, just, the Black content, there's no market for that. And we need a white male lead in Europe when we do the pre-sales. These are major people telling me this. I'm not going to say their names. These are major high-up people. We need a white male lead. I go, okay, but if you do this story, you're going to be ahead of your time. Germany doesn't like Black projects in Europe. They control a lot of the money in the pre-sale. When we have to raise the money, we need a white male lead. And I just was like, wow. I'm like, wow. So I used to have my Black producers pitch it also. So I got off like, hey, email this guy. Same thing happened to them. And I was like, wow. So they finally eventually end up doing 2 versions of this for over $40 million. So I watched this fly over my head. And to say I'm upset, I'm very upset. Am I going to sue somebody over it? No, I'm not. I promised them I wouldn't. They want to put me in jail. Like, this is how ridiculous these people in Hollywood are. They're so petty. They're so elitist. They are such bullies. And a lot of people have these stories. It's not just me. I learned that. That's even watching the strike. I'm seeing these people are angry, and these writers. And I guarantee a lot of the same stuff happened to them. I'm sure they pitched, Madonna's movie and they had some connection to her, but they couldn't do it because they were some nobody. And I have a connection to a Michael Jackson movie and the same thing happened with that. So I was like, oh, you know what? No, I'll make my waves another way. And there was plenty of fodder with the sex abuse, Weinstein, Epstein even tied into Hollywood. They tried to sell his projects. I know the people that were involved in that. They tried to sell Waco, the murder of these kids at Waco. They tried to profit off that. So it's like I saw the light and I changed. So I went from this kind of company guy, Hollywood worshiper, I want the car and I want to be Spielberg. And I did that and it didn't work. And this brought me to what I do today. And maybe this is better. I don't really make a lot of money doing what I do. I don't do it for the money. I write books for the money. I basically do it to help victims, families, tell the truth. And so that basically is what I became.
Interesting. Also, though, if you are doing it this way now, like if you write the book or you break something or whatever, doesn't that lock you into the rights far more or makes it more difficult for somebody to steal it?
Basically, the short answer is, and it's going to sound weird and your people can research it, but I'm just going to say it straight up. There are no such thing as right. There's none. And especially if someone's famous or it was a famous event, there's no right. Now, someone could sue you. Let's say we want to do Michael Jackson's movie. And I know his attorneys. I dealt with them. I dealt with the highest people on that and Aaron Hernandez and Emmett Till. And I went through this whole thing. There's no such thing as right. Someone could write a book and say, I wrote a book about Aaron Hernandez. I'm making a movie. I sold the rights to my book. Did your book have the rights to Aaron Hernandez? No. Did your book have the rights to Emmett Till? No. But you sold your rights to because that's a trick. That's how Hollywood does it. They just need, how does Rolling Stone magazine, how do they sell products to Hollywood? They write an article about it and sell it as a movie. Go watch the movie Pain and Gain. Michael Bay, one day at breakfast, I know the people behind this. I know the guy who was part of it. He made $0. Michael Bay opened the newspaper one morning. I love this story. It was a great story about the Mark Wahlberg plays with Dwayne Johnson, Pain and Gain. He didn't pay anybody. He took a story that was in the public domain many years later, and he made a $25 million movie. Did he ask for the right? Nope. Did he need? I don't even think he needed the rights from the article. So what I'm saying is just like everyone, this is what I learned. Everyone has a right to make art. If you want to do a movie about Aaron Hernandez, go ahead. If the family, the mother and the brother, they want to sue you in court, then you go to court and you play your case out. Anyone can be sued for anything. So I learned that, especially on Emmett Till, Natalie Wood, some other, I've had over like 100, I've had a lot of projects, man. But I'm saying, I learned that and I kind of accepted it. And people used to tell, this is what they do in Hollywood all the time. I went to court. I had to go to court. And a reporter was in the courtroom, waited for me. And I go, are you here? Well, I think your story's interesting about how you're battling Hollywood. You're going to lose. And I go, why do you think I'm going to lose? And the reporter goes, because that's what they do. They take projects from people. They don't grab the family's rights. They do it all the time. And this reporter was right. So I may still do Aaron Hernandez. I may still do Natalie Wood. I may still do Emmett Till. There's room to do multiple versions. How many movies have they done? Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. This is the fourth. Okay. They did 2 Prefontaine movies at the same time. They did 2 Emmett Till projects. So they're doing Aaron Hernandez. Maybe I can do Aaron Hernandez myself. I'm trying to be more into solution, right? I'm not trying to be litigious. I'm like, if Ryan Murphy wants to do Aaron Hernandez, go ahead. I already know the angles you're going to draw on, and I'm going to do something different. So I'm trying to find ways. Yeah, writing the book. Absolutely. And then when I take the book, when I did the Delphi case, I did 5 meetings with big time production companies and distributors and studios, and I had an agent. And then nobody wants to buy my book, and they don't have any money to license my book. I'm just, dude. So like, look, they'll drive you crazy in Hollywood. They'll make you nuts by how their deals are so fake. Well, we don't have any money. We can't pay you for that. Well, write us the script for free. Give us the book for free. We don't do option deals anymore. I'm telling you right now, it's a hustle. And some people have mastered it. I just watched one of my favorite shows, Unsolved, Tupac and Biggie. I'm using it as research. I know the people involved in the show. I know the cops involved. Fascinating story. And I watch it. I did this on John Bonet. I watched Larry Schiller's series, Perfect Murder, Perfect Town. I love the combination of reality to art. So between what's real and what's scripted, I love that in between. I love it. And I'm trying to learn from these people too. And I guess my point is like, I just have to make my own stuff. I need to stop worrying about them. I have my own money, guys. I have some micro investors. I don't need Hollywood, so to speak. I can go straight to consumer. So that's my new thing. That's the evolution of Chris Todd. It came from nothing and it's here now, trying to bring truth, but also entertain.
As we are recording this, Hollywood is on strike. We talked about it earlier in this conversation. Do you see this as being an absolute reckoning and potentially destroying Hollywood completely?
You could never destroy Hollywood. And I used to use the term Gomorrah, where I would talk about, fire and brimstone. And there was this time where there were fires in Hollywood burning down Malibu. The Weinstein thing was about to blow up. That exposed the whole charade of all these men that abused women in Hollywood because they hung these things over their head. And they abused men too. I actually was involved. I had an abuse case against myself at one time, and I'm not going to talk about it right now. I did against a gay man that tried to do something like this to me. And this was early on in my career. Harvey Weinstein, that was a big punch to Hollywood. That created the Me Too thing. It's still going on. They just busted a couple of guys. That didn't really go away. I think with the SAG-AFTRA strike, with the WGA strike, I think what that's doing is it's shaking up the economic. Will it destroy it? Absolutely not. You're going to get rid of your TV? You're going to stop what? It's not, it'll never happen. These guys used to joke at this one agent I used to know. He's like, entertainment is like food and water. You need, and he was right. He was right. It's never going to go away. I think though this shakeup is going to restructure a little bit of the power and the money. I think what's his name made a good point. Was it Barry Diller, the big head ex-studio guy? Take 25% right off the top of the big actors and the studio execs. Just cut 25% off of what they're making and just send it down. And I think he had the most simplified answer, right? Cut what they're making and trickle it down. Go back to Reagan economics, little trickle down economics. Just make these people happy. Because I'll tell you right now, I guarantee you this. First off, this strike, the reason it's in the summer also, they don't work in the summer. Hollywood, they're all on vacation. Nobody's working. They like this drama about, we're on strike, we're striking. They don't care. They're not going to end the strike till September. So you could pretty much forget August. They don't work anyway. They've been shooting hard for 5 years. They have tons of content. People talk about this. They know that. And then it'll come back. Like everyone's just taking a break. You know what I mean? So.
Interesting. But I guess I should rephrase it. When I say in Hollywood, I'm in a different environment. In my own weird way, I'm competing with Hollywood. Because I'm competing for hours.
Yeah, you're a content creator.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm obviously micro, and nothing to it. But when you have a million of me,
it's short, man. You're doing good stuff. I'm going to say that to you right now. You guys are doing good stuff, and we need people like you. So I'm saying,
right. Well, what I'm saying is that while my scale is small, when there's 100,000 of us, and we're all drawing hundreds, thousands of eyeballs each, that becomes millions and millions of eyeballs. They're not watching the quote mainstream content. And I don't remember how long it takes to change a habit, but there is a thing where X amount of time you change a habit. And if you say, hey, there's nothing new on Netflix, let me go check out YouTube, and then you get hooked into new shows, that has a very long-term devastating effect, I feel, on Hollywood. And that's, I guess, the question I have is, are they destroying themselves potentially because people, they're not going to get rid of their TV, but I don't know if you realize this, X amount of my users, especially on one of my shows, I think 60% of them watch our show on television.
Oh, really?
And a lot of YouTubers are seeing that, where people are watching their favorite YouTube or Rumble show.
TV. Right.
Yeah, on Roku or Apple TV. Sure. And, well, that's the funny part. I watch Netflix on my smart TV. Mm-hmm. So what's the difference? YouTube is just it's all a channel. And I kind of wonder, and of course, this is me sort of hoping too. Let's be honest, the more eyeballs that come in and the more traffic I can get, the better off, it's going to help me and other independent creators. Is that the angle that you could go? Like right now, there's a strike, but if you're doing this independently and creating content independently, well, the strike becomes irrelevant, right? Because you're not doing a union shoot per se. You're creating your own stuff as an artist.
I think they're going to come back. It's never going to go away. They'll resolve this. It'll hurt some people. The internet to me is like a network, right? It's a picture of another studio. And inside that, when you go to YouTube, which is Google, and that's a studio. When you go inside there and you find people like you and you find other creators and influencers and true crime people, absolutely. That's entertainment. It's art. It's just another avenue. It's just more stuff. I watch YouTube probably more than I watch TV. Absolutely. I watch documentaries. I watch normal people. What reality did with this voyeurism, when Hollywood used to kind of have the stranglehold, when everything was scripted, and then they brought out Real World, and people saw inside the house, and they did Laguna Beach, and people saw these high school kids. It changed the game. It started to be like, I'm interested to see what these duck hunters are doing on Duck Dynasty. I'm not watching broadcast NBC, a shoot 'em up terrorist SEAL show. They're not. Joe Rogan pulled more viewers than NBC News.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So what I'm saying is there's room because there's so much now. It's global. There's 7.2 billion people on phones and watching everything. It's just more content. They monetize it. Look, who owns YouTube? Google. Who pays a lot of these influencers? Disney. Who do you think buys them out? Studios. They still own the airwaves. I heard Premiere does a lot of podcasts. Odyssey, Spotify, right? They're like their own mini studios. But I'll tell you this, because I feel like I've done some cool crime solves and crime stories, and I've exposed some really fascinating stuff. I'm not famous. Nobody's banging down my door. I'm not making any money. I'm big on being super transparent. Every person that writes me, I write back. I talk to them. They call me. I give everybody 30 minutes. I can't believe I'm talking to you. Oh my God, the OJ thing. Oh, this blows my mind. And I talk to them. I'm here one-on-one because I don't have millions of people emailing me. I don't. What I'm saying is you need money. You need power. You can do your thing. You have a great show. You do great stuff with your guests and stuff. If you don't advertise it, if you don't dump $50,000 a month in ad sales or advertising, they don't see it. They're not all seeing it. Go look at your numbers. Figure it out. Okay. Some people have magical numbers, 10 million subscribers. I know I related to someone sort of has just hit 10 million subs. It's a big deal. Right. And so what I'm saying is, but you either have to have that magical talent and get a little lucky, get the exposure, or you got to pay for it. And I'm learning that now. I'm basically, my next move is I have some mini backers and I'm trying to pay the ad sales for the impressions. I'm trying to get my books out there. I mean, look, I wrote arguably one of the most controversial books ever written in the true crime space. I sold 100 copies. Okay. And I've done 7 interviews. So you have to look like, because people ask me all the time, why aren't you famous? Why do people not? I'm like, well, it's semi-fame. Like I was on Court TV. I was on News Nation. I know a lot of famous people. I've done a lot of press articles. You've seen my name, not always as Chris Todd, almost as both names. So I'm just trying to look, we're all trying to evolve, right? You're trying to evolve your stories, your product, bigger audiences, right? So, and I wish you luck. I want everybody to have that, but obviously there's only so many viewers that can watch so many things at a time.
Right. And there's only so many hours. And I think it's also perspective too. Like, I believe it's Kevin Kelly. I don't know if you've ever read it or heard of it, but to me, it's one of the most important essays out there. He was with Wired magazine. It's called 1,000 True Followers or 1,000 True Fans, one or the other. And the basic premise is you don't need millions and millions and millions of people. If you have truly dedicated fans, and let's just say there's 1,000 of them, and you gain through whatever means $100 for each of those fans every year, that's a living.
Sure.
And you're nobody giant. You're not that big. Most people would never recognize you, but you can have a comfortable living, do well, and express your art. So that's kind of the mindset I have in terms of.
I like that. And I think it's a give and a take. I think any artist, people, they write things about me and they say nasty things about me on my John Bonet thing I just did, my other crime solved, murders. It's give and take. You give, right? And you receive also. So for you as a content creator or anyone, you're giving yourself, you're telling a story, you're putting money up, you're recording yourself, you're paying for the equipment, it's your time, right? And then you receive those 1,000 fans, or you receive accolade, or maybe your fan base grows. So I think it's like a two-way street. It's like, you got to put yourself out there, see what happens. Okay. Give and ye shall receive. And that's what I try to do, is write everybody back, respond to them, have a conference call, be nice to them. They may say some crazy theory, respect it a little bit, right? Hey, I never thought of that. Sound good. Let me look into it. I have people write me, can you please help my child? She's been missing. I get a lot of that. I absolutely will look at it. No problem. If they go off the rails and they say something really crazy, or I can't even do anything with it, yeah, I kind of drift away. I never say like F you. I just kind of drift away from them. So yeah, look, there's so much content, man. And the studios, going back to what you said, they kind of shot themselves in the foot. And I'll tell you what the real downfall of the studios really was. The pay is too high at the top end. It's too high. You give a Ryan Reynolds $30 million to do one movie, he works for 3 months. A lot of the movies that now they're talking about giving Dwayne Johnson, these guys, $50 million. You have to understand, a lot of the products, when I was at Sony on a couple of projects, the executives used to say, well, we'll all lose less. Why don't you have your investors bring in the money? We'll all lose less. Like, we don't want to lose any money. Well, we're going to lose money. We'll all lose less. It was known that a lot of the movies, they don't make any money. When you hear like Warner Brothers, I didn't finish the story about this vice president of Warner Brothers, asked me for money. We don't have any money. I'm like, what are you doing? You're Warner. Come on, stop. No, we don't have any money. You bring your own financing and then we'll take a distro deal at 15%. And I'm just like, man, here we go. So when Fran Drescher said they're crying poverty, they kind of do. She's kind of right. But see, you know this in some of the stories you've done in the economics of our capitalism. If you have a company, it's much easier to bilk that company and go and be in an operating debt of $2 billion like WME was in an operating debt of $2 billion supposedly. Well, we're almost in the black. Does that make sense to you? Because what they're doing is they're paying out themselves and the actors and CAA and the huge agent. They're all making money and they destroy the company. Why would Disney have a problem with money? Think about it. Why would they even toy with? Well, they might have to sell off some assets for Disney. I dealt with Disney at A&E once, and I've told this story before. I asked them for $25,000. Their head almost fell off their body. I asked for 25 grand. Okay. I just did a meeting the other day. I want to call these agents out so badly, but I won't. I did a meeting, a Zoom call with 2 agents and a producer. I said I wanted an option deal for my book. Their faces and their bodies, they blew out of the screen. And I did it on purpose. I'm like, you guys, man. They're like, well, you're being kind of contentious with us. I go, dude, you didn't even know the number of the option deal. I didn't even say a number. And you look like you saw a ghost. Just stop. Everybody in Hollywood, stop crying about money. Stop. There is trillions, billions of dollars on that television, on that internet. Okay. And this is what they're talking about. Let's stop. I'm amazed. Like these agents, I don't really talk to agents as much anymore. I just kind of entertained it because they like my projects and my books. And I go, you guys are doing the same thing you did to me 20 years ago. We don't have any money. An option deal. We'd never pay an option deal. I'm like, you guys. So it's kind of the haves and the have-nots. If Jerry Bruckheimer went to them with a true crime project, they'd probably cut him a check for $1.5 million on an option deal for 1 year. No questions asked. So that's what I struggle with a lot of times. They don't know who Chris Todd, not a household name. You know, there's other Chris Todds too that I'm finding out, which is, it's fine. But, so, it's a frustrating thing. Some people are successful. They've made it. I'm happy for them. I'm fighting my battles. You're fighting your battles. We just keep moving forward, and the more people you know about your show. I like your theory of 1,000 fans. I would like to say that number should say 1 million fans. just based on, you know what I mean? Like to really make a real impact. But yeah.
Yeah. But it's just a number.
Yeah.
It can be that or whatever. There's a baseline of survival and then thriving and on down the line. So I'm thankful for 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever it is. Thankful for all of them. And that's always a tricky thing. So what is next for Chris Todd to wrap up?
I want to push forward and take to the next level all of my crime stories, my true crime content. I want to take to the next level. I'd like for more people to see them. I'd like for my books to have a wider audience. I'd like to turn the books into movies, scripted and or documentaries. I sort of almost am like, I don't know if I'm coming back to Hollywood like that, but I'm saying it more direct to consumer. So I'm working with a couple of money guys, and I'm trying to build the brand to solve murders for families, for the public. I think the public has a right to know and need to know some of these, their safety issues. And I just would like to have a wider base and a broader audience. I'd like to touch more people. That's really what I'm trying to do.
Awesome. Well, while you're doing it, consider if you can do your own creation, your own filming, etc. There are people who make documentaries straight to YouTube, straight to Rumble, straight to other things, building up their own communities. People will fund them, and maybe you won't sell, 100,000, but you might sell 10,000 of them, 20,000 of them, and they can be profitable. And it only takes one to really go viral. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of like on the highway, going down the highway 80 miles an hour. So I'm a very spiritual person too, and I talk about in my books about God and my quest and how I feel I've been shown the light in certain ways, and like we talked about, being used to do certain projects were given to me for me to do them. So I'm kind of steaming down the highway, and I've kind of let the reins go a little bit. I just see what happens. I have some interviews coming up. I just got on the Tupac and Biggie thing. I have some inside info on that. I'm trying to do that. And the Delphi case is going to heat up here when the trial happens in a few months. That thing's going to be off the wall. And, my baby, everybody knows my real baby, the one that I want the world to know the truth on, the granddaddy of them all. So I'm still trying a little bit to have that happen, but I really feel that fate and God, and that's in control. I've kind of let it go with these, that I just keep working hard and hopefully something happens. If it doesn't, that's okay too. Give first, right? I'm giving myself and the knowledge without worrying about that reward right now. So I wish you really well. Maybe we could do something again on another case or a story. And I really appreciate you having me here today.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.